Okay, so in 12.1 part C, you're actually going to use several rules here. So the first rule you're going to use is called the power rule. Okay, the power rule. And so the power rule basically said something like this. If you have a to the m power, and that's being raised to the exponent n. So remember, this means you're going to take a to the m, and you can multiply it by itself n times. So basically, you're going to say m plus m plus m plus m n times, which basically is you're multiplying those exponents. So it'd be a to the m times n. So basically, in words, when you have a power raised to power, you multiply the powers. Power to a power, you're going to multiply. So I'm kind of leaving some words out because of the room that I need. Okay, so you can multiply the exponents. So that's where we're going to use it. We actually use it in all over the place, but you can actually see it here. So remember, x to the 6, you're cubing it. So basically that means in the long, if you do the long way, that means x to the 6 times x to the 6 times x to the 6. But that's just the product rule here, so you just add your exponents. 6 plus 6 plus 6 is 18. But you don't do that because now you know something called the power rule. So the power rule is when you have an exponent raised to an exponent like you have here, see how it looks? Then you're just going to multiply. So it'll be x to the 18th power. Okay? Now, here you have two variables raised to an exponent. So that's where we're going to use. This is going to be called the power of a product rule. Okay, power of a product rule. So you see, it kind of looks like this. So it's a product, and you're raising to a power. All right. So basically, you're going to take each factor. You're going to raise each factor to the outer exponent. Okay, so basically that means this. So if you look at number 2, that means, I'm putting number 2 here. So that means x squared is being raised to the 4th power, and then y cubed is being raised to the 4th power. All right, now once you understand this, you can skip this step. So you could just say 2 times 4 is 8, and then 3 times 4 is 6. But this is what you're doing. So notice the power of a product says I'm going to raise each of these factors to this product, and now I'm going to use the power rule. So x squared raised to the 4th is x to the 8th, and then y cubed raised to the 4th is y to the 12th. So it's x to the 8th, y to the 12th. All right, number 3. Now, number 3, you're going to use the power rule again. Now, for number 3, it's a good idea to listen to what I'm saying. So this coefficient's a 3. You got to think of this as a coefficient. So think of the coefficients differently, but you're still squaring it. So this is 3 squared. And so that takes us back to a previous worksheet that we did where we had something like this, like 8 squared. So 8 squared means 8 times 8. So that's 64. Okay? 1/5 cubed means 1/5 times 1/5 times 1/5. So you got to think of these as coefficients, and because that's what they are coefficients. But you're still raising it to the 2nd power. But you got to think of this as 3 squared, which is 9. And then this is a to the 4th, and that's being squared. All right, so 3 squared is 9, so that'll be a 9. And then a to the 4th squared, when you have a power raised to power, so using the power rule, so you multiply the exponents, so it'll be a to the 8th power, to the exponent 8. Okay, over here, you have a to the 5th raised to the 3rd power times b. Now remember, there's no exponent, so there's to be a 1, so I'm going to put a 1 here, raised to the 3rd power. Okay, now I'm going to use the power rule. So 5 times 3 is 15, and then 1 times 3 is 3. So that goes here. So a to the 15th, b to the 3rd power. Number 5, so notice you can actually see, now here there is a coefficient. All of these had coefficients. This is a 1, this is a 1. But when it's something other than 1, you gotta actually write it out. So see how this is coefficient is not a 1, it's a -2. just remember, negative 2 is being raised to the third power as well. So you can say negative 2 to the third power. And then x to the fifth to the third power. And then y squared to the third power. And then z, there's no exponent, so it's going to be 1, raised to the third power. And so negative 2 to the third power, that's where that part A comes in. That's where that part A comes in. So negative 2 to the third power means negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2, which is a negative 8. And then 5 times 3 is 15, so that's x to the 15th. 2 times 3 is 6, that's y to the 6th. And then 1 times 3 is 3, so that's z to the third. So the answer is negative 8, x to the 15th, y to the 6th, z to the third. Okay, over here, you see a coefficient other than 1, so write it out. So it'll be number 6 right here. So that's negative 3 to the third times x to the 5th to the third. So negative 3 to the third means negative 3 times negative 3 times negative 3, which is negative 27. And then here, you're going to use the power rule. So 5 times 3 is 15, so that's x to the 15th power. So that's negative 27, x to the 15th power. Okay, number 7. Now this is where you see these, you have fractions here in numbers 7, 8, and 9. So this would be called the power of a quotient rule. Just like the power of a product rule, this is where you're going to use the power of a quotient rule. So basically, you're going to take the numerator and the denominator and raise it to the outer exponent. Raise the numerator and denominator to the outer exponent. All right. Okay, so here's how this is going to look. Number 7, so you're going to say xy, the numerator, raised to the second power, and the denominator, which is 3, raised to the second power. All right, so I just used the power of a quotient. Now, if you look at the numerator, now you're going to use the power of a product rule. So you're kind of using all these rules here. So that'll be x squared times y squared like this over, and then I'm just going to go ahead and tell you that 3 squared, remember 3 squared means 9. Okay, so removing the exponents, remove the parentheses rather, that means x to the second, y to the second divided by 9. So that's what this is. So x to the second, y to the second divided by 9. And again, you can skip a bunch of these steps. All right, over here, if you actually work out all the steps, you're going to say number 8, that's the numerator. So again, using the power of a quotient. Power of a quotient. So you're going to take the numerator, I'm just rewriting the numerator, and you're going to square it, and you're doing the same thing with the denominator. So that denominator is being squared as well. So that's z to the 5th squared. Now use the power of a product here. So it'll be negative 3 squared times x. Remember, there's no exponent, so it will be 1. So x to the first squared, and then y to the second squared divided by, and then I'm just going to go ahead and use, notice this is the power rule, so 5 times 2 is 10. And then using the power rule with these, and just knowing that negative 3 squared means negative 3 times negative 3, which is a positive 9. I get positive 9. 1 times 2 is 2. X is second power, that's the power rule. Power rule here, 2 times 2 is 4, divided by z to the 10th. So that's the answer for that one. So 9x squared, y to the 4th, divided by z to the 10th. Okay, so here you're doing the power of a quotient rule. So you can take the numerator, raise it to the third power, take the denominator, raise it to the third power as well. All right, now for the numerator, that's going to be the power of a product, denominator as well, power of product. All right, so in the numerator, you're going to, and again, you can skip this stuff, but I'm going to write it out. In the numerator, you're saying x cubed raised to the third power, and then y to the first raised to the third power, and the denominator, that coefficient you can actually see is 5. It's something other than 1. raised to the third power times z to the fifth raised to the third power. So now you use a power rule on this part, this part, this part. You just use the fact that 5 cubed means 5 times 5 times 5, which is 125. All right, so I get x to the 3 times 3 is 9. Y to the 1 times 3 is 3. Divided by 5 cubed is 125. And then 5 times 3 is 15. So that goes here. That's your answer. So x to the 9th, y to the 3rd, divided by 125, z to the 15th. Okay, number 10, that's just going to be the power product rule. So the power product rule, so that means I'm going to take each of these factors raised to the second power, just like I did with these right here. Just like I did with these. So I get, in number 10, you're going to get negative 5 to the second power times x squared to the second power times y to the first to the second power times z to the fourth to the second power. And now you're going to use the product of the power rule, the power rule in each of these. And just know that negative 5 squared means negative 5 times negative 5, which is 25. And then power rule, when you have a power raised to power, you multiply the exponent. So 2 times 2 is 4, so that's x to the fourth. Y to the 1 times 2 is 2, and then 4 times 2 is 8. So it goes here, so that's 25, x to the fourth, y to the second, z to the 8th. Okay, so, all right, so notice that in part C, you actually used all these rules here. All right, okay, so that takes care of 12.1, part C.